Welcome back to the last segment of the show. Before the break, we were talking about Will Muschamp in Florida. And, a lot of these Florida fans talking about, back in the day when Florida was, really good. And when do y'all remember? I know, Andy, you're older than us, so you may. But I don't remember Florida being good until Spurrier got there.
Well, Galen Hall had some good teams with him. Now, he did. And I remember as a kid, Steve Spurrier won the Heisman. He was the quarterback and the kicker and the center and the wide receiver. I mean, he could do about everything on this team. And I loved watching them, but they weren't a national. I mean, they weren't anybody really to contend with. Galen had a few bright seasons, but until Spurrier got there, they weren't anybody. They weren't.
I got a friend of mine that used to work with Charlie Pell, the retired former Florida football coach, and he got to know him and got a lot of information, just some knowledge. And I got a lot of Florida fans that like to talk trash, and I always make them mad and say, hey, Florida football wasn't invented until 1990.
Exactly.
But I mean, you're right about the Galen Hall, but Charlie Pell.
And Charlie, I did forget about him, but he had some bright spots.
Yeah, I think Charlie got the head coaching job, I think in 1979 or 1980. But the thing about it, that little run that Florida had in the 80s under Galen Hall, they were under probation. Because I remember in 84 they went 9-1-1. They had to forfeit the SEC title due to being on probation. And then the same thing happened in 1990 under Spurrier's first year, I think, at Florida. But, I mean, Spurrier wasn't connected to that, but they had some other allegations. Yeah. But, of course, after that, Florida's been clean as a whistle. And they've been a dominant program pretty much in the ACC since 1990. But, like I said, before 1990, they had one or two seasons, and that was it.
That was all. I mean, and matter of fact, if you go back and look at some of the scores of the Alabama games, we used to kill them. I mean, everybody used to kill them. Tennessee used to kill them.
I remember the 1979 game when the year Alabama won the national championship, the last one under Coach Bryant. They beat Florida 40-0. Florida didn't win a game that year. They won 0-10-1, I think, was the record.
And so, I mean, whatever Florida's done, they've done here in the last 20 years. And now they're slipping back. So.
And really, I mean, I hate to say the same thing. Of course, it's not an ACC team, but the same thing with the Miami Hurricanes. They had their run in the 80s and 90s.
And since 92, they haven't been anybody. I mean, they really haven't.
I didn't want to really go there, but every team in Alabama has played for the national championship has really not really kind of look at Miami in 92. They hadn't been doing anything. Texas.
Notre Dame.
I know.
And LSU's the only team that's really withstood.
Well, from the SEC.
Yeah.
Yes, and like someone was talking, before Auburn got beat, the only SEC team that had lost a national championship was LSU. And they got beat by another SEC team, and so I want to get that back. I want an SEC team to continue to keep dominating, and I want two of them in that playoff, and I want to wear those Big 10 and Big 12 and Pac-12 teams out.
Well, I brought that up about Florida and Spurrier because there was I read an article. I've been trying to find it, but I can't find it right now. But there was an article a couple of weeks ago about the best college coaches of all time. And, of course, Nick Saban's on there, and Bo Schembechler from Michigan was on there.
Woody
Hayes. And Urban Meyer's name was on there. But they didn't mention Steve Spurrier. And,
how can you not?
I'm either, Duke was nobody until Spurrier got there.
Exactly.
Florida was nobody until Spurrier got there.
South Carolina was basically nobody till Spurrier got there.
So how can you not consider Steve Spurrier one of the best college coaches of all time?
That's what we're doing. We're dealing with northern sports writers, and they're not. Urban Meyer, I mean, he got nauseated and got sick when we beat him, and had to change. He went to another. He had to get out of the SEC. We ran him out of the SEC.
There's irony there because Ohio State's been a nobody since he's been there.
I know it, but I tell you, the hype they get every season. And I'm just watching every year somebody that hasn't got any business beating them, like the announcers, they just love them to death. Ohio State ain't done nothing.
Well, they got their big thing this year, and it's why everybody's got them ranked so high as Braxton Miller. Well, Carlos Hyde, the running back that was there last year, is not there this year. He left.
He helped Braxton Miller a lot.
That was 50% of the offense.
Uh-huh.
And when Braxton, he was kind of like Nick Marshall last year. When there was a wide open receiver, half the time he couldn't hit him. And he's going to have to do that this year
because he doesn't have that running back. And I think the other two running backs they've got are sophomores and hadn't got much playing time.
Yeah, one guy played in 11 games, but he only had like 25 carries.
Yeah.
I'd like to see in 10 more years Gus Malzahn's record versus Urban Meyer's record, and I'd be willing to bet Gus's would be better.
I'm sure.
I bet it would too.
Sure.
I'd love to see Auburn play Ohio. I'd like to see that matchup: Gus Malzahn versus Urban Meyer.
Well, Urban Meyer's gonna stay away from playing the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
unless they get put in the playoffs.
Yes, and then they'll get beat.
Of course, Urban Meyer's. Gus's cholesterol is a little bit lower than blood pressure is a little bit lower than Urban's too. So that's probably going to help. Because chewing a lot of gum lowers your blood pressure.
Well, Ohio State does have to play Michigan State during the regular season this year at Michigan State. So maybe they'll get that loss out of the way.
Isn't that about the fourth game of the season?
It's pretty early.
Yeah.
It's about midway through the season, yeah. So.
I want them to go ahead. I'm a Michigan State fan. I like it because they're one of the few teams out of that conference that'll play defense with you. And they seem to be – and I like their coach.
And they beat Stanford, and they earned my respect when they beat Stanford.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought when they beat Ohio
Mark
State.
D'Antonio.
Yeah. I really didn't give them. They beat Ohio State. Well, I figured somebody was going to beat them anyway. But when they went out there and beat Stanford, they
solidified their mark.
That was a pretty big deal.
Yes.
Plus, that was pretty much out there in Stanford's territory. That was almost their back door there.
Yeah.
And plus, I bet on Stanford.
Yeah.
So. Not real money. Of course, I wouldn't do that.
Jimbo Fisher this week was speaking to the Florida State softball team, giving them a pep talk before their regional game. And he said, well, what? At Florida State, we strive for greatness. We want to play the best and beat the best. That's why we should have played Alabama in the national championship game.
Is that what he said?
That's who they wanted to play was Alabama. But when Auburn beat them, they kind of knew they weren't going to play. They were hoping they would still get Alabama, but
I was wanting a shot at Florida State myself because there was wasn't there a back and forth game back in the 80s, 90s, somewhere about the 90s where we went down there and played them twice. Or
Florida State?
Yes.
Auburn played Florida State several times because I remember going to the game.
Didn't we play them once during the Shula years and they came back and barely beat us? I mean.
We played Florida in 2007, Saban's first year, and then prior to that we had not played them since 1974.
Florida State?
Yeah.
Gosh, I can't believe it.
Well, Bobby Bowden was at what was he at the? He was at it was Saban's first year, I guess, when they honored him in Tuscaloosa. You remember Bobby Bowden came out on the field?
Actually, that was the Penn State game in 2010. And they honored him before the game, and because there's a picture of Joe Paterno, Bobby Bowden, and Nick Saban out there all cutting up laughing on the sidelines. Dad gummit that Bobby Bowden.
Well, have y'all seen? And I don't know, y'all are Alabama fans. So y'all can tell me, should y'all be worried or not? Because they're saying now that Coker may not be there's no given that he's going to be the starter now. I don't know if
Coker's not the starter. The athletic department needs to refund everybody their tickets because the season is not going. Blake Sims is not going to be the quarterback.
Well, I think it's the propaganda that goes along with it before the season. They want to keep you guessing. They don't want to give anything away, and I don't fall for some of those quarterback reports.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that they want to build it up as to be a race and. I don't want to think about it.
Well, according to Bleacher Report, they're the biggest wild card in college football to make or break your team is Coker.
Yeah.
And I guess I have to agree after watching that spring game.
Oh, yeah.